There's worse things to buy pallet of.
Yeah, why not resell
All right. Good evening, Force with Patriots family. We are live with episode 35 with Mr. Kyle Hallstrom, U.S. Navy, in the house. It pained me to have to put up a Navy flag. I was going to try to go at least a minute without a Navy joke. I'll be easy on, but welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Good. He's made a nice road trip from Kentucky. He's got his shirt on today from Buffalo Trace. Made a little visit. So, but thanks for calling. We'll talk a little bit more. Kyle was actually an intelligence specialist in the Navy. We'll talk about your career in intelligence a little as we move on. So we'll start off with our quote from our former president, John F. Kennedy. I can imagine no more rewarding a career, and any man who may be asked in this century what he did to make his life worthwhile, I think can respond with a good deal of pride and satisfaction. I served in the United States Navy. So look at me. I was going to make a joke and had to throw out a good Navy quote, but now it's a lot of great men that serve the Navy. We haven't had a seaman on in a while. Anybody? So it's good to have it's good to have you. And it's actually good to get rid of the Marine flag because actually we have a straight flag there. It's a joke for all the Marines that have been in here. We got a pack of flags, and the Marine one was not symmetrical, so it kind of fits the Marine Corps. So
Did you glue a bunch of crayons to it?
No, I don't. It's like it takes a challenge to hang it up though. It's not. It's all offset. Everyone thinks I'm joking until I look on the backside. You can't see it, but no. But thanks. It's crazy. It's crazy. We're supposed to be making fun of the Navy, not the Marines, but we can't help it. But no, thanks for coming on. Kyle and I met at the bar. Is the way to put it, and learned Kyle's in the military. You could tell from the pictures, everyone, he's a little bit smaller than when he was in the Navy. He's gotten a little small compared to that, but no, Kyle's making me feel small here. I didn't even think they had a T-shirt that fit you there. What size are you sporting there?
Yeah, it's a 2XL. It needs to be washed 2 or 3 times to.
I wear the same size too. It just fits a little differently.
It has to come in medium.
That's true. Gotta shrink it up a little. But no. So what's interesting? We have another, like many people here. Kyle's an original Ohio guy, right?
Yep.
Grew up on a farm. Tell us about that a little bit.
So I grew up a small town east of in eastern Ohio called Barnesville. I think it had like a population of 4,000 when I went to high school or something like that. It was one of those towns that not much happened. I ended up finishing high school, worked as a machinist for about a year, tried my hand at college, then ended up joining the Navy. It was probably the best thing that I could have done in the situation I was in, just because there wasn't a lot of opportunity in that area, and it let me get out, experience, see the world. I just smacked the
I think the record is like 12, but
yeah,
you're on one already. We'll keep saying.
Hey, so somebody in the peanut gallery keep a tab. No, but it was a really good opportunity. I got to how far do you want me to go before?
No, the floor is yours.
I ended up going to recruit training in Great Mistakes, Illinois, in January. So that was it's a great experience. If you haven't been to Chicago in January, it's riveting.
Nice and warm.
Yeah. So after that, I went to Virginia Beach, Dam Neck Naval Base. That's where the Navy and Marine Corps does the intelligence schools. At the time that I became an IS, we had a requirement that you had to not only pass an A school, but a C school. So the original A school is 13 weeks. What that does is it teaches you how to hone your analytical skills, how to work on intelligence problems, a little bit of intelligence writing, just about everything to prepare you for the fleet. And then after that, I attended a C school, another 13 weeks to be a 3910. It's now, I think, a K10. It's satellite imagery analyst, and also with an emphasis on full motion video and UAV type stuff. So after that, I ended up first duty station was Joint Staff Duty, Miami, Florida.
Yeah, that's a great place. I mean, that's probably the best place. I was looking at it earlier today, and I'm like, that's a great place to be stationed,
Yeah.
Miami.
You know how
You've,
far an E3 paycheck goes in Miami, Florida?
not very far, I'm sure. But
Friday night.
But back before your party in Miami, we always ask people here: anybody in your family in the military? Or were you the first to go that route, or?
So my dad was a naval aviator. He flew A7s, and I have a cousin who was a West Virginia Guardsman. So that was kind of my role model going in. Was I just kind of needed. My cousin had done something similar where he had joined the Army to kind of change his trajectory.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, and we talked about it before. It's a great, anybody that's listening now is, the military has changed a lot of people's lives. It still can. It's a place to spread your wings a little bit, learn something about yourself, get a skill. Mostly get a skill that you can use when you get out. Not all of them apply, but it just teaches you some core stuff. I think that really helps when you get out of the military. So. You back then, so you had a Navy and Army guy. So what made you choose the Navy intelligence rather than one of the other branches?
The Air Force recruiter wasn't there. If we're being honest, I tried to call the Air Force recruiter like 15 times. He said, "Oh, I'd be in the office on Tuesday." Walked in the office, he wasn't there. The Navy recruiter came out. It's like, "Hey, I've seen you around here a couple times." Sold.
The Navy guy's never coming in. No, it's gonna. But that's a great snag. I mean, did you ever see the Air Force guy after you did all your paperwork, or never?
No, that guy probably hit his numbers in January and just didn't show back up. So
that's interesting. So why was the Air Force your original choice?
Well, just growing up in a family that had a couple of military role models, I always got the stories about how much better the Air Force was and how much cushier it was, and how a lot of their skills in schools translated more to college afterwards. So that was kind of why I was looking at Air Force, and then the Navy kind of set me up, so I was able to get in and do a lot of good work.
So the back to the school. So the Navy has two of the most complex things. Whenever I research anything to do with rank, I still don't know Navy rank, and I still don't understand all of the A schools, B schools, C schools, all these other schools you have. So your A school would be equivalent to what, and like the Army and Marine. Is that your AIT?
That would be
initial introduction to your MOS.
That would be like an introduction to your MOS, and then your C school is going to be kind of like a technical subspecialty AIT. So it's a school that really teaches you the in-depth specialist knowledge that you need to do your job, not just kind of the general rules of the road. Some rates don't have C schools, so it's kind of the things like IS, IT, CT, a bunch of others have very specialized C schools where you get that's where you really kind of get the building blocks to become a subject matter expert in your craft. So
okay, because that makes sense. You explain it pretty well.
So
thank you. And I mean, because it does depend who you talk to. When they talk about the schools, and so I think we had another Navy guy, and he talked about a C school, and I'm like, and they talk to other people, they don't even know what a C school is. So that makes a lot more sense. So it is a lot more, MOS driven and become a subject matter expert. That makes sense. So you do that both at Dam Neck. You head to beautiful Miami, Florida.
Yeah, Miami, Florida was a riot. I worked a number of different missions there. I started off on a Caribbean team doing disaster relief right after Haiti had a big hurricane. So I looked at tons of images or satellite images and UAV footage of Haiti. And I don't know if it was that destroyed before the hurricane happened or if it was always that destroyed, but it's kind of the nature of the beast. After that, I went to a counterterrorism team, worked a lot of kind of ad hoc requirements. And then the first departure from normal Navy stuff occurred, I ended up getting loaned out to SOC South, so the Special Operations Component down at Homestead Air Force Base. I worked there as an imagery analyst because they didn't have any military imagery analysts. They had one NGA rep that did all their EMIT for them. So I was there to kind of provide more manpower. And after I did that, I worked on some big projects. Like we updated the No Strike database. So hospital, schools, mosques, other churches, just things that you want tracked where they are in case anything were to ever have to go kinetic, or you had to do like a non-combatant evacuation. After that, I went to a high value target team. I can't really go into depth on what that was, but it was a pretty good experience.
So, as an analyst, are you looking at UAV footage? You're looking at what kind of footage were you guys? You specialists in all those different types of imagery, or?
We did everything from happy snaps that soft teams took on the ground to national technical. That's two. I hit the microphone twice. I got you. To classified satellite imagery and everything in between, from predator feeds to people taking pictures out of an airplane window. So that's kind of what that job entailed.
Yeah, because I think it was crazy. I was in Afghanistan in 2003, and there were a lot of civilians that were doing that work for us at the time, and it was just crazy to see. To be interested to see how much that technology is gone. But they were, they were locked in a room, and these guys could look at imagery and tell you, down to the person and the type of weapon they had. And we're kind of like, I don't know, we believe in these guys, but I mean, so that jumped. You're talking 2010, 2011. You're down there at this time, so that's moved along, a little bit long in technology. How do you think it is now compared to? I mean, you got out in 17. You've had to seen a huge jump in that short time with the type of, let's say, like imagery capturing devices that the military is using to.
The biggest thing that really came along in that time frame wasn't really the big like the classified satellite products, but it was there was a lot more commercial imagery available. So there are a lot of vendors that shoot satellite imagery for like Google and Bing and X, Y, and Z. So you had a bunch of that available. You had ComSAR, which is best way to describe SAR. It's called synthetic aperture radar. You shoot noise at something, and you can see a reflection of that noise. So it's all weather day and night. So there was a couple ComSAR satellites that were being used, as well as the weapon systems pods on the Predators, as well as the manned air assets, had gotten so much better that we started to use those as intelligence gathering platforms. So you could take that video and use it for really good intelligence value. So that was really, kind of the big classified systems. They were so far ahead that they really hadn't changed in that period. Plus the cost to put in a new satellite up is pretty high. So.
Interesting. So you're down in Florida for a couple of years?
Yeah, about 2 years. Then I got an opportunity. I went back to Dam Neck to pick up another C school. I completed 12 of 13 weeks of training, and there were some personality differences at the schoolhouse. So I became needs of the Navy. went back out to the fleet. I went to Strike Fighter Squadron 213, where I was the Intel LPO. I had a couple guys that worked for me. That role was it was an interesting blended role because it was more on the security management side. There was still a heavy intel portion when we were deployed, but it was making sure the pilots put the classified material back in the safe and counting everything, chasing ducks, managing people's security clearances, X, Y, and Z. So that was a pretty good role, but ended up doing the 2014-2015 combat cruise aboard the George H.W. Bush. We're shipping the fleet.
There you go.
Yeah, 9 months underway on it. I think the toilets probably worked for 3 months, so it was pretty rough.
So is that still with the Strike Fighter Squadron that you're with?
So we were embarked upon, that was the carrier that we were assigned to. So it was F-18s, Foxtrot variant, so 2-seat Super Hornets. I did a number of things on that deployment. I worked back in MSI doing satellite imagery interpretation for a while. Then kind of got pushed out to the analytical cell because they were kind of short. Then went out to manage the debrief cell. So what the debrief cell is when we catch a jet, we have to take all the that's 3.
Yeah, 3.5. You hit it like lightly before.
So you have to take the weapon system video off the jet, and anytime they employ ordnance, you have to send a clip to the Pentagon so that they can kind of keep track of all that in case there's a situation that Al Jazeera says you bombed a school or X, Y, and Z. And that's where you take the pilot's mission report, write it down, put it in the system, send it out with the weapons clips. Something that was really interesting about that assignment. So an aircraft carrier is the world's highest stake game of I'm not touching you. So what that means is anytime that we go into a country that we weren't already operating in, we have to create understanding with our partner nations. And most of them don't have a problem. Like if you want to fly counterterrorism missions out of Jordan into wherever, they're not going to really care. Or, Turkey's pretty, pretty much lets us do a lot of what we do. But there is a time gap from, hey, we have a problem, to how fast we can get something from somewhere to somewhere else. And a lot of that was had to do with drones. So we had a lot of ISR platforms that we couldn't get into country right away. And we were flying F-18s into country and using their weapon system video as an intelligence gathering platform. So I managed that team. We went through a ton of video at the beginning of the ISIS thing. It was a pretty challenging part of my career.
For you, that could be exciting and challenging, but I got a picture you telling F-18 Hornet pilots that they were going to just be cameramen or camera women. I mean, that's honestly got to be a change to what they want to be doing, right? I mean, they want to be probably putting ordnance down and actually fighting instead of, running video for you guys to analyze. It has to be a change in what their mission is, or was that always one of their missions?
It was kind of a new blend because, but even from the pilot side of it, they still have to watch that video to bring it back to you in real time. And some of the things that we were recording were pretty dark. A lot of that beginning, you saw the videos at CNN of, pickup trucks, lined up for 20 freaking miles and, pushing into Iraq and then taking over little villages. It was way darker than you saw on CNN. It was pretty heavy for some of the people. So, so that was a pretty challenging assignment. I had a number of people who worked for me, and we all kind of shared the burden and kept it, afloat the best we could. So
right. I mean, it's got to be tough to watch what they're, the atrocities that they're capturing on tape and then actually documenting it. And I mean, I think at real time, I mean, I guess at real time, it might be easier to deal with that than to sit back and look at it. Hindsight, that's got to be rough for both the pilots as well as the analysts to do that. So that's what you guys call the debrief portion of it, right?
Yep.
So you talked about the prior intelligence portion. Is that where you're providing as an intel guy? Are you helping provide the targets to pilots, or what's your role when you initially were with the pilots as an intel specialist?
So how intelligence works on the ship is it's a blended bag. So the ship only has a few intelligence specialists that are assigned to it. It has a handful. There's probably a third of the intelligence specialists are provided by the air wing. So each squadron provides 2 to 3 guys, depending on how the billeting works out. And then there is a strike group personnel that come from O&I that fill out the last third of it. So what ends up happening is all these people get in the ship. We have to learn how to work together. But then through workups, you become a pretty solid team, and you can run the show.
So how many strike squadrons are on an aircraft carrier?
We had, I believe, 4, and each one was, I believe, 12 jets. So then there were 2 helicopter squadrons, a Hawkeye squadron, and jammer squadron, so electronic warfare squadron.
And all the squadron different. It could be like a F-18, the regular 1-seat F-18s. It could be, or all the squadrons the same normally.
They were so there was at my time, there was a blend of Legacy Hornets and Super Hornets. So we were the 2-seat,
Okay.
The Foxtrot. The other, our sister squadron, VFA 31, was a single seat Super Hornet, and then the other 2 were single seat Legacy Hornets. So,
which I feel like the new Top Gun movie brought the 2-seat F-18 Hornet. You know,
yep.
I think a lot of people didn't even believe that existed until they're showing that. Everyone's like, "What are we talking about here?" That was and then I think Jacob was on and talking about actually wanted to explain that to us. I was like, I thought that was all BS, but apparently not.
It was an F-18 Foxtrot. The funny part about being at that squadron is it used to be an F-14 squadron. So you walked into the mission planning space, and there was a floor length picture of Kelly McGillis.
Okay.
So there was a jukebox in there that had the worst hits of the 80s, including the Top Gun entire soundtrack.
But there's a lot of pride. That was a great aircraft.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of pride in the.
There's still a lot of pride in it. There, if you find people that used to be maintainers or pilots of the F-14, it's still like a cult following. So
yeah, I still think the F-14 was still the coolest. I mean, it probably was because of Top Gun, but
yeah,
this was a great aircraft. I mean, the swooping wings. I mean, it was a pretty cool.
Have you ever seen one in person?
I did. I actually saw one years ago at an air show in Newburgh, New York.
They're massive.
Yeah, it was big, and then it was great. It was at the time when I think the Hornets were coming aboard, and there was a Hornet pilot and a Tomcat pilot, and they were giving each other a bunch of shit, which I thought was even more fun. I mean, I don't think that F-14 guy was around much after that, but it was a pretty cool thing. Yeah, that was a great demo. They both did a great demo together. It's pretty cool. So how was life on the ship? The aircraft carrier, we always hear it's like a floating city. It's got
so floating city would be the wrong term. The best way to simulate this lifestyle would be to take a small Briggs and Stratton engine, throw it in the bottom of a dumpster, paint it gray, leave all the smells of the dumpster in the dumpster. The Briggs and Stratton is merely there for vibration. And then have somebody toot an air horn every 2 hours, and then have somebody run into your dumpster at least twice a day.
I never heard it explained that way. I mean, I think we should ask you if you've been on a submarine. Can you explain a submarine in those terms?
No, I've never been on a submarine, but no, the aircraft carrier. The worst part about being on a carrier is the fact that your deployment's 9 months long. You are nuclear, so the only thing you really have to stop for is food, and most of the time you bring that on via helicopter, or you pick up jet fuel from a tanker doing replenishment at sea. So we would go through the med, and then the destroyers that were with us had to stop for gas, so they'd pull into Romania or Italy or Greece or so
They're like, you guys just keep going on, Bush.
yeah. So the worst part about it is it was Groundhog's Day. Like especially as an intel analyst, what ended up happening is from you'd normally get up like 5 o'clock in the morning, start to get up to the morning brief if you were day shift. From the moment that you woke up, it was the same person making the same announcement every single day with the same bells and the same whistles. And how many breakfast items are there in this world?
Not many.
How many do you think the U.S. Navy serves?
I think you guys have it better than the Army did. I'm gonna have to say like 10.
Yeah,
10.
Well, it's the same 10 breakfast items every day. So really, until you got to after the brief, because the brief only changed a tiny bit every single day, you have lived the same day.
Yeah.
And then you all got off work at the same time, so you ended up in the line to get into the gym, pretty much in the same spot every single day, give or take like one or two different people.
Maybe a 30-minute difference.
Yeah. So it's being on a carrier is challenging. I kind of did both sides. My last deployment was on the green side of the Navy. It was way easier being in country than it was to be on the ship. The other thing about being on a ship is there's no Wi-Fi. So you can't use your tablet or your phone or anything. Your bandwidth is super limited on the few unclassified systems that you do have access to. So,
gosh, like taking away the Wi-Fi, 10 breakfast meals,
yeah,
garbage, smell like garbage. You got a gym though. That sounds pretty good, I guess.
No, but they limited your workout to 1 hour.
Right. And I've heard though from the aircraft carriers that's one thing is they're always working. Like a friend of mine was on them and they talked about just they're always launching aircraft, bringing it back. It's like a continuous. I think that people think they're only sometimes just doing something, but the mission is always going on like constantly. Aircraft are taking off, landing, and just the same. Like he said the same thing about it, just deja vu is what he said. It was like the same, pretty much the same day, same, lives the same life, wasn't doing what you were doing, which he was launching and retrieving aircraft. So I think that's got to be even more Groundhog Day-ish than what you were doing.
And the thing with the carrier is the pilots have a rotation that they have to fly to keep carrier to keep up the carrier qualification. So even if they're not flying a combat sortie, they are flying some type of training sortie. So they're taking off, they're flying around doing something, and then they're landing just to keep up their quals. So there's constantly stuff going on. There's constantly broken jets in the hangar bay. So there's always the sound of tools and X, Y, and Z. So the carrier it's a great place. Highly recommended. If you want to learn humility, go on an aircraft carrier.
I just feel like, honestly, we make fun of the Navy. I can't think of any ship at sea where it would be enjoyable. I mean, you've seen, and I've seen a lot of the living quarters of people that went to museums and seen stuff, and it's just, there's not a lot of room. Number one, like everything is number one. I feel like it's made for people that are like 5'6", getting around. It looks like it's impossible to get around. Yeah. I don't think. I mean, that's all joking aside. Being at sea in the Navy is not a glamorous,
the other
glamorous thing, in my opinion.
The other thing to really remember about a ship is the ship hates you and it wants to kill you. No, there's nothing sharp on a ship. I mean, there's nothing soft on a ship. You fall down the ladder well, you're going to break a bone. If you grab the door the wrong way, you're going to lose fingers. It's the nature of the beast. So it wears out people pretty fast. The other interesting thing about being on a carrier is it's not only are you in this dumpster, you have inserted your entire high school class into this dumpster with you. Only you have dwindled the female population from 50-50 to there's 3,500 people on the ship and 500 of them are female. So it really ratchets up the drama.
Yeah, that's Another reason why I'm glad I didn't join the Navy. I mean, I thought the aircraft carrier is the way to go. Evidently, I'm wrong.
No, it's it wasn't all bad. When I was on the ship,
Are you sure? Because you've made it sound
well.
awful.
I had the opportunity. I had a collateral duty. It's called the Snoopy team. It's mostly manned by ISs and the MCs, which is multimedia. So they do like photography and stuff. And what we would do is anytime we would have an unknown contact, we would have to run up to the very top of the ship and take pictures of whatever it was. So like when we were in the Straits of Hormuz, the Iranians would come out and mess with us. So we'd take pictures of the Iranian boats, and we would do the same thing for exercises, which was really fun because one of the things that I got to see, we had a frigate playing Red Forces with us, and it could be worse type of story. They call out this contact, and we get up there, and we're looking for it, and we can't see it. And we're in pretty bad seas, and all of a sudden we see the mast of the frigate come up. You see the whole ship, and then it goes over the other way. And I'm like, oh, shit. No, if you've ever been on a small ship like a frigate or a destroyer, they have non-skid painted halfway up the walls. So when the ship pitches over in seas, you can walk down the wall on the way to wherever you were going.
You're not helping anybody that's thinking about the Navy. So bad season aircraft carrier. Do you really feel it, or is it that big? Can you tell you're in bad seas, or
it depends. One, where you work. So if you're a maintainer and you work on the flight deck or the hangar bay, you're going to feel it. That's my brother being it. So so you feel it in rough seas. But if you've been on a boat like on the lake at all, that's about how bad it gets on an aircraft carrier. It doesn't get miserable. There are people who you can tell have never been on anything that was ever on the water, and you'll see them out in the P-way throwing up, and you just kind of step over them to get where you're going. So
kind of reminds me of my dad when we went deep sea fishing quite a few years back. He tried to tell everybody they went to Vietnam on a boat. Him and the entire. I have to tell this boat story because I haven't told it in a long time. So we go deep sea fishing, and the night before, I always from being an airborne option, I always take Dramamine. So I'm like, it helps you deal with it. So in the morning we're getting ready to go on the boat. Offer Dramamine to a bunch of people. No, I don't need it. You're a pussy. You're taking the Dramamine. That's fine. So we leave the cove, and as we're leaving the cove, of course, there's no waves. So everybody's all in a great mood. The guy takes us out like 2.5 miles off the coast, and it's just like 3 or 4 foot swells, and the boat is just rocking. And then you just watch for one person after the other hanging over the side of the boat, vomiting. My dad was on the chair, holding on, the fishing boat chair. He was like green as you can be, just throwing up. And the best thing is I'm still fishing. And the captain comes up to me, he's like, when do you want to go back in? And I said, well, we have like an hour and a half left on this charter, right? And he said, yeah, but everybody's sick. I was like, I don't give a shit. We just keep fishing. It's not my fault I'm sick. And he was like, hey, I'll just help you fish. And we're having our fishing. Everybody's laying around. But my dad's claim to fame was that he was going to make it because he took a boat to Vietnam, which was total bullshit. But yeah, I couldn't imagine being on like a destroyer. I can imagine being on a ship, honestly. It just doesn't seem like the lifestyle that.
No, it was
for me.
I didn't intend to do it.
It wasn't your intention.
So it goes back to my worst boat story, which was it's kind of Navy, kind of wasn't. I was PCSing from Miami up to Virginia Beach, and we stopped at my dad's friend Bruce's house to go out on the boat. He gets this boat out of his brother's driveway. We get out in the breakwater, and water starts coming over the transom. And I'm standing in ankle deep water. I'm like, I don't think it's supposed to do this. Let's get out of here.
I'm gonna need a bigger boat.
That was a pretty rough one. But yeah, the carrier was super rewarding. But I knew I didn't want to do it again. So I had the opportunity to either re-enlist and do another carrier deployment, so on the same ship, or go over to the reserves and finish my college degree. So I had been working on my degree, active duty. So I decided to go over to the reserves with the intention of coming back in as an officer. So I went over to the reserve side. My wife and I had we got married right when I transitioned. So we got married in 2016. We had kind of talked about what the Navy career looked like for us long term. We ended up deciding that I should volunteer for a deployment because it would give me 5-year deferment. So we were kind of ready for kids. So we decided that if I volunteered for the deployment, we could start having kids and we'd have 5 years before I had to even think about deploying again. So I went ahead and volunteered.
Well, before we get into the deployment, the first deployment, the first deployment, do you consider the ship a deployment?
Yeah, it's a deployment.
Okay, so we're gonna try your Irish whiskey first. So we're gonna take a break here for Kyle. Tripped me up here. It's our first Irish whiskey guy. Okay. So we went. He picked out McConnell's. I didn't even know this thing existed. I've seen it before. But actually, it's distilled by the Belfast Distilling Company, which is located in Belfast, Ireland. McConnell Irish whiskey's heritage goes back to like 1776 when the family was selling their whiskey to the public. What's interesting about this is the original McConnell's Irish whiskey does not have the E in it, which Irish whiskey did at the time. So what's interesting is they kept the original branding of that name throughout. What's interesting about those is the two brothers, with the success of what their family was doing, they started the J.J. McConnell Distillery in the early 1800s. Some really bad luck happened to them. We've talked about this at U.S. distilleries, but they had a really bad fire in 1909 where they ended up engulfing the whole distillery and destroying about 500,000 gallons of whiskey. Right after rebuilding it, though, things weren't great. For a number of reasons. One for prohibition, but at the time, about 90% of all Irish whiskeys kind of disappeared. They brought back this iteration in 2020. McConnell's Irish whiskey is 84 proof, so super low proof. I didn't realize that when you picked it out, but he's got Ice Cube over there. I'm giving a hard time about. It's not age stated. What I'm excited about is actually aged 5 years in an ex-bourbon barrel. The mash bill is 70% grain whiskey and 30% Irish malted barley. So haven't had this brand before, so looking forward to it. You got your Ice Cube ready?
Yeah, I had to. Yeah, your cute Four Roses Ice Cube.
Really nice. Yeah.
It did turn out quite well. Like it's one of the cooler rocks that I've seen.
I didn't think it was going to work, but our first Irish, we had Scotch, and it didn't go very well.
It didn't go well?
No, I'm not a huge Scotch guy, but I'll drink it if I had to. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's
pass around to the vultures though.
The peanut gallery.
Drink it, yeah.
I really like Irish whiskey. I like bourbon too, but a lot of times I want something that's super smooth without the smoke.
Right.
So that's kind of where I go with Irish whiskey.
My only thing about Irish whiskey is it's super low proof and a little too sweet for me, just in general. Like it's not that I can't drink it, but I just feel like this is something that if you get going, you know, I always made a joke before. This is like when you always see in the movies when people are, giving Irish and they shoot it, a shot of it. It's definitely at 84 proof, and the grains they use, it's super smooth and goes down pretty easy. You're right. It does. This is nice though. The only weird thing is the difference in color that I'm kind of used to with bourbon and whiskey. So, or American bourbon and whiskey.
The funny Irish whiskey story is I actually have a son named Jameson. My wife will deny it, but the story is that when I was a young sailor stationed in Virginia Beach, I used to get a case of Jameson on payday, and that would last me 15 days the next payday.
A case of Jameson.
Yeah, 12 bottles.
We're talking about some beer feats and some crazy stuff. Like
I wasn't a complete cretin. I didn't drink an entire bottle of Irish whiskey on Sunday.
That's still a lot of. I mean, I can't. I'm not going to say how long it's taken me to drink a case of whiskey of bourbon before it's all just. I'm not going to incriminate myself on camera. The how long that's taken, but I try to generally only have a few sips at a time. So,
no, I get it.
No, but Jameson's another good one. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Irish whiskey at all. I was just giving you a hard time about it. It's you know, if I'm picking whiskeys, I would put that behind American whiskey, ahead of Japanese whiskey, and then I got to say Scotches are probably my least favorite. Occasional, you know, with the difference of certain brands, but in general, the Scotches are.
I can really only do Scotch if I have like a good cigar pairing with it. That way I have some other flavor in my mouth that hides the flavor of the Scotch.
The peat.
But I mean, it's go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, for me, Irish whiskey and bourbon are about neck and neck. After that, maybe rye. And then Scotch is definitely pretty low on the list. I don't really dabble in Japanese whiskey.
The Japanese whiskey is good. It's really smooth. It's a little floral, but I mean, definitely the hibikis. Those are. Oh, there's some great.
That's one for you.
That's one for me. Huh? You changed me rare. We're gonna see how many times we both can do it. No, but yeah, it's always great. But it was fun to have a different take on it. We haven't. Had a Irish yet, so glad to do that. So let's rewind a little bit. You get off the carrier, instead of re-enlisting and possibly going back out, you decided to join the reserves.
Yep. So they had an option that I could just do selective reserve. So I finished out the last 2 years of my contract as a reservist instead of doing inactive ready reserve. So. Volunteered for deployment, got picked up immediately. What most people don't understand about the Naval Reserve is there's a lot of parts that people don't know what's going on. You're kind of at the mercy of who's drilling at your NOSC. So if you don't have people who, and it's not their fault, it's people who have been out to the fleet and have done a very specific job. Then they get kind of thrown into a generalized leadership role, and they have no experience with what an intelligence specialist does, or what the difference between an IS and an IT is, or what a cryptologist.
It's one letter. SNT.
Yeah. So what nobody told me was that ISs were part of a managed community, which had a really short deployment list. And how it kind of works is if there's a billet that's empty, the Navy has to first go out and look at the reserves to see if there's anybody qualified before they can tap somebody from active duty to fill that hole. So I put my name on the volunteer list, immediately got pinged. I think it was like a day after I put my name on the volunteer list. They're like, "Hey, you want to deploy tomorrow?" I'm like, it's a little quick. Like, this is like in November. I'm like, Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff's coming up. Like, tomorrow is a little fast. And they wouldn't tell me anything. They're like, "Hey, how about next week? How about the week after?" I'm like, this is weird. You have to tell me what's going on. So it ended up, what happened is there was a fallout for somebody who was supposed to fill a billet at the Joint Special Operations Air Component out in Qatar. So I went ahead. I was qualified for that role. I took it, filled it.
So before you go there, your wife knew you were looking to deploy. Yeah. What was her reaction when you told her that within a day that you're actually deploying? That has to be a tough.
I married an engineer, so there's two sides of her emotion. Like, she's either super rational or she just becomes a puddle. So it was a mixture of super rational and puddle. But
So did you have any kids at that time? Or
no, we didn't.
Okay.
We were holding off, waiting to deploy before we went ahead and had kids. So I got picked up for that. How the process in kind of the Naval Reserve and even on the active duty, if you go to augment the Army or Air Force or whatnot, you go through a program called NIAC. So it's down Fort Gordon. You go through kind of a gentleman's boot camp. It's very dumbed down. It's like, hey, this is body armor. This is how you wear body armor.
This is how you put the helmet on. Hey, Navy, turn around the other way. You have it on backwards, that kind of thing.
This is an M4. This is the end that the bullets come out of. This part you put against your shoulder. So that was a few weeks. It was, I'd been shooting my entire life, so it was a pretty easy transition. The funny part about it, though, is they separate you early into what they call shooters and non-shooters. So people who they think are going to pass a qualification, and people that have no chance of passing qualification.
How accurate are they, though?
Oh, they're Army drill sergeants. Like, what they end up doing is they push like a division of boots, and then they kind of get like an R&R period where they just push Navy guys for a little bit. So, and then they go back to, because they don't have to yell at anybody. Everybody there I think we had one E3, and that was it. Everybody else there is an NCO. So everybody understands the game, and when you're told to do something, you need to do it. And that, like, we're dealing with, you have firearms, so somebody can get killed, so we all have to be responsible adults. But they separated us, and the part I remember the most is we did the M9 qualification. So they send the shooters down the line.
That's four.
They send the shooters down the line, and we all shoot. We all pass. Then they send the non-shooters down there, and this is down south. You know those pine trees that have like 25 foot of freeboard before you see the first branch. They fire the first volley, and this is like at 10 feet, and you see branches falling off of those trees. I'm like, oh crap, somebody's gonna die. So, needless to say, I think there was only one person in that class that had to sign a waiver, or the commanding officer that was gaining them in Afghanistan had to sign a waiver that they were sending this person into country with a weapon. So
this person will never be allowed to have live ammunition.
What is it, wood gun squad? Rubber gun squad?
That'd be the trip, wouldn't it? They give like the rubber ducky there that hang around. Like, you have to clear your weapon. No, mine's rubber. I'm not allowed to carry a real one. Now, what rank was this person?
They were, I think, an E5. Like, but they were a YN. Like, they had never seen anything but paper their entire naval career.
Yeah, that had to be. I mean, but in all seriousness, Doc, you kind of feel bad for those people because they at some point in their career they probably never even thought they'd be doing that. So it's kind of a shock to be now. Oh my goodness, now I'm having to carry a weapon. I did this job because I didn't have to do that. And now you're. I mean, I could see that with people in the military as well as the civilian population. Some people still don't want to have anything to do with guns. My wife, for example, I mean, she'd probably be the one shooting the top of the trees and all that kind of stuff. Or Ben, my oldest, he can't shoot at all either.
And I'm a pretty good shooter, but the first go around, they gave me this Colt M4, and I swear this thing probably shot a minute of sheet of plywood. And so I'm trying to zero this thing, and it is all over the place, to the point where the drill sergeant's getting on me, and I'm like, hey, listen, you shoot this thing. He lays down behind it and shoots it and can't group it. And he's like, yeah, we're going to the armory. So took the Colt M4 back to the armory, got an FN M4, and then was shooting like little clusters. And it's like, yeah, it wasn't me.
Feel better about yourself.
Yeah. It honestly, that Colt looked like it had been drugged behind a Humvee for probably 15 miles.
You shoot a lot though, still, right?
Yeah,
You're a big shooter.
Yep. So
Always been, or did you pick that up in the military? Or
no, I grew up around guns, and I grew up shooting. I grew up on a 300-acre farm, so there was always the opportunity to, my older brother and I think we had a 22 that we shared when we were like 7 and 9, because he's 2 years older than me. So, so we always grew up around guns. We knew how to shoot. So it wasn't challenging for me. Give me the equipment that works, and we can get there.
Don't make it too challenging for me. So you take this job with the Joint Special Operations air
component.
Component. In a couple different locations, or are you allowed to talk about where you guys were?
We bounced around a little bit. The 2 main locations were Qatar, of course, and out in Jordan. It was a really cool job, because what it is, we managed everything that was under the SOCOM umbrella that flew. Besides the 160th SOAR, they just told us what we were doing, and we gave them the big, you told us what you were doing, gave them a thumbs up. But we did a ton of deconfliction for them. We watched a ton of like Predator feed, did helicopter landing zones, X, Y, and Z, airstrips for the special mission C-130s, all that kind of work, kind of that back end work that goes into being able to wring out every ounce of usability out of those aircraft. So it was a pretty rewarding job.
Was that the most fun job you had?
Oh yeah, by far. It was great, because we kind of had a long leash, but we knew what we needed to do, and there wasn't a ton of administrative red tape to kind of get in our way. So, for example, one of the things that I did when I was out in Jordan, we built them a brand new tactical operations center. So I was the senior enlisted guy out there for that. Det as an E6, had like 10 guys that worked for me, and we were able to get that set up and get it rolling for them. So it was a great time.
So the 10 people work for you, all Navy, or was it joint?
I was the only Navy guy at the command. Well, no, I take that back. There was a chaplain. There was a Navy chaplain. There was me. So
the rest of them Army, or was it?
It was all Air Force.
Okay.
There were a couple of Army guys, but
okay.
Mostly Air Force. So
like a good little mix of
the carrier deployment was actually the only assignment that I had that was all Navy. The rest of it was joint.
So that deployment lasts how long?
I was supposed to be there for 9 months. I did 6, and I ended up breaking my back. So we were riding in a vehicle. I got displaced, landed on a Pelican case, got 2 small fractures in my spine, and herniated 3 discs, and ended up having to leave country. So
not the expected way to come
yeah.
home.
And I was preparing to take the chief's exam for LDO purposes. So I was working towards that goal, being an officer. And I would have probably finished out my career, all 20, if I didn't hurt my back. So
what happened in the vehicle? Was it?
We were just going over rough terrain, and I ended up being in the front and then going into the back.
Yeah.
And landing on a Peli, and that was it. So
they are pretty hard.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those situations where you're fine in the moment. I woke up the next morning, did one of those big good morning world stretches. So walked out of my tent, stretched real big, and my left leg went numb. And that's when I knew that I had a serious issue.
So that's the only reason that you left the Navy then?
Yeah.
Or? Okay. Interesting. So medically retired, or did they?
No, what ended up happening is basically, it's one of those hindsight's 2020 type things. They told me that they could keep me around in Virginia Beach, take me to Portsmouth Naval, and I could go through the treatment process and might be able to stay in the Navy. Or I lived 55 miles from the nearest VA, so I could go see a civilian doctor to get my back fixed. I was like, you know what? Portsmouth Naval sounds like being in a wheelchair the rest of my life. So I opted to just let my my contract expire, and because after that deployment, I had like 6 or 7 months of deployment deferment. I mean, not deployment deferment, of drill deferment. So I just let my contract expire and then tried to do treatment on the outside.
So how's the back now?
Not great. I do what I can to stay active and kind of keep it as mobile as much as I can. Good days and bad days. You know how it is, like knees, hips, back. I was lucky enough that I did get enough treatment when I was in the service. And this is kind of my if there's anybody's out there listening that's kind of on the fence about joining, or people that are still in, make sure that you get seen, because how I ended up getting my disability rating is I got my medical record and I photocopied it, set up paper boxes on the floor, so printer paper boxes, labeled them like left knee, left wrist, right knee, back, neck, and just went through the medical record.
That's five. That's five.
Put them in each box chronologically.
Right.
Then I actually put them in a binder, tabbed them, and when I went to comp and pen, they were like, "What proof do you have that your left knee was hurt?" Well, if you grab the pink tab labeled left knee,
I'm sure they really loved you.
So,
yeah, they were like, "We got another one of these guys."
But if you have the documentation, it's like anything. You can get bad government employees, you can get good government employees, and then you have people in the middle who are there just trying to do their job, and they have a left and a right that they have to meet. If you provide things that are inside of the left and the right, then you set yourself up for success. So the VA isn't a terrible place, but you have to play the game. Yeah,
you got to be in control of your own destiny, I think, is a good way to put it. If you don't play, you got to play the game. If you don't play the game, you're not gonna win, or you're not gonna come out on top for sure. So you get out of the Navy, you got a little bit of a back problem, couple broken bones there in the back.
Yep.
So you decided to switch it up. You head to Hawkeye Community, or you decided to get your LPN, change your career. Was there stuff before that?
So immediately upon getting out, I went back to the machine shop for a little bit. Then I got picked up for a job working in supply management. So my wife worked at John Deere. I also worked as a contingent at John Deere in supply management. Then I decided the ink wasn't even wet on my bachelor's for business yet, or wasn't even dry yet. I was like, hey, I'm not going to do this. So I went and enrolled in nursing school. I did my LPN year. So I went to school through my LPN program. Ended up working as a nurse as I worked on my RN, and then my wife got a job here in Columbus. So it was one of those situations where her salary literally doubled. And we're like, we got to escape Iowa. So I had every intention of going back and working in my RN. Started working, when we were in Iowa, I worked 2 years as an LPN.
So what made you decide that? That was one of my questions, is
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big jump from what you're doing. What made you
It's
gravitate towards the nursing career?
it's actually not a huge jump for an intelligence analyst because both career fields are super analytical. Just you change the problem. So you have a lot of guys who go do the contracting after being intel, or they go be a cop, or but any of these jobs that are super analytical, like nursing, it's a great fit. You literally take the problem that you were working on, you just change the parameters of it. So, like in nursing, for example, whenever somebody undergoes major surgery, all their comorbidities come out. So, Susie's 84 years old and finally had her knee done. All of a sudden, she goes into heart failure. Well, it's because she's 84 years old and we did a knee on her. But besides that, you just chase those problems with an analytical mindset. So it's actually a really good fit for an intel analyst to go to nursing. So that's kind of why I went there. Also, my dad is a nurse, so I was like, well, it worked good for him, so I might as well just give it a try. And I really did like being a nurse. COVID kind of killed it for me a little bit. I was really burnt out. And actually, the friend that I met my wife through, who I was in the Navy with, is the one that set me up for the job that I'm currently doing.
So is there no desire? Are you done with the nursing career? Have you thought about?
I've thought about maybe doing it on the weekends for like a PRN. Right now, with the way my back is, I've kind of tabled it for now. I'm busy enough with my day job that I don't need a second job.
Yeah, but have you ever thought about making that your first job?
No, not at this point. The company that I work for is absolutely amazing. So most of the days when I'm working, I don't feel like I'm working.
Interesting. So are you allowed to talk about where you work now?
Yeah. So I work for a company out of California. It's called Aardvark. We are the largest distributor of riot control gear in the world. But we're a full service distributor. So we sell just about everything beside like the gun in the car for law enforcement. So bags, body armor, drones, breaching tools, chemical agents, you name it, we carry it.
So are you doing technical sales, or what are you the sales side, or what?
I do outside sales, which is really great because I love being customer facing, being able to be out there and help some of these guys find solutions to some of the problems that they're facing. So it's really rewarding. I actually do believe that some of the office girls are watching, so I'll give them a shout out.
So with the job now, you were just in Kentucky, I said earlier.
Yep.
We were talking earlier in the podcast. You were just down at Buffalo Trace. So do you cover down certain states, or how does it work?
I have a pretty big territory, so I cover the Great Lakes region, the Mid-Atlantic region. So pretty much down to the like Kentucky, Virginia line across, then clear out to the Wisconsin, Iowa line.
So is this more you going to the police departments and showing what you have, or is it more of them calling you guys in and asking you what you have?
It's kind of a mixed bag. We have a lot of really unique products that drive a lot of people to us, but there's always tons of proactive work and legwork. So
what are the products that drive them to you then? What's
the drones really are a big sole source products. So like our drones, our body armor, our breaching tool, those things are unique to us. And then we have some other vendors that work real close with us that are great to work with. So it's a lot of fun.
So I'm surprised by it. So how many police departments do you know of are flying their own drones now?
At this point, it's almost everywhere. It's and it's so much better for not only the officer but the suspect. Because what ends up happening in this problem set is you take, your average SWAT operator is the same as your tier 1 military guy. These guys have trained their entire life to be super proficient at violence. The guy on the other end of the spectrum has trained their entire life to be really good at piss poor decision making skills, and that is why the SWAT team is at their door. When these two guys surprise each other and end up face to face, somebody gets ventilated, or beat up or whatnot. By being able to put in a piece of technology, a piece of plastic, you get rid of that surprise, and you can, by not putting the operator in harm's way, you don't have to be in a situation where you have to resort to lethal force. So it's a great opportunity. It's a growing field. There's, everybody's looking at some type of drone that they want to field.
So these are these all civilian drones, or they're just, drones that you guys make, or
we
just sell a certain brand, or
we sell a certain brand. I don't want to go too deep into the weeds on it, but ours is made specifically for the tactical end user. But the vast majority of people out there that are trying to start a drone program or using a drone in a law enforcement setting, a lot of them are using something that's off the shelf.
Right.
So
it's just interesting that it's not. It's kind of the way it's going to be, but you just think of how drones are with everything. People have, you go online, you can buy a $4,000 drone that you're using to take pictures, or people are using them to inspect roofs. I guess it's just a matter of time before law enforcement is using them, just like their military counterparts. And it's crazy. My son, when he was hurt at football, he ended up flying the drone for practices for a whole year, which I thought was for at a school, and there's the football team getting great imaging from the drone. So you ready for the second pour?
Yeah.
He's eyeballing. He's ready to go. His ice cube's melting fast.
Well, I'm trying to look at what you got in front of us.
We're gonna go rye. I didn't know that you like rye, but we're gonna go with the rye next. So
okay.
We'll go with our second featured whiskey of the night. We're gonna get back to America, instead of the Irish. I could do, but we've talked about. I think we've talked about New Riff before, but New Riff is located in Newport, Kentucky, just about an hour and 30 minutes from here, just across the river in Cincinnati. It was founded in 2014 by Ken Lewis. He actually was a liquor retailer at the Party Source, which is right next to New Riff. And what was interesting about the Party Source, it used to be the only 100% independently family. I think it still is the only 100% independently and family owned liquor store. But New Riff got started off as OKI, which a lot of the bourbon nerds around here know about. I don't know how much they know about it across the country, but OKI was a big deal here. While their distillate was aging, they were sourcing from MGP, which is in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and then OKI was a cool riff on the states that it touched was Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, distilled in Indiana, bottled in Kentucky, and loved in Ohio. They were selling they were OKI until about 2018 when the brand, the OKI brand, became New Riff. In 2018, New Riff started releasing their own brands of whiskey, all bottled and bonded, and they also started releasing some rye not very far after that. The single barrel bourbons were pretty prominent. The first things that came out just last year, they started releasing these single barrel rye, which is what we have in front of us today. So this was brought by a former guest. This is the People's Proof and Cleveland Bourbon Elite single barrel rye, which is aged 4.5 years old. You're gonna have to hold on to your pants here. It's 107.4 proof. I hope you can make it. Non-chill filtered.
I got an ice cube. So
okay. And the mash bill is 95% rye and 5% malted barley. It's a little typo on the screen there. But give it a shot. You said you like rye. I didn't know that, but these I love these single barrel ryes. They have a nice bite to them.
I think my biggest problem with rye is I like a good rye. but there's not. I don't have as much latitude in ryes as I do bourbons. Like you can get a pretty average bourbon, and it's great, but I feel that you fall off that wagon pretty quick in a rye.
I think rye is like, I try to explain rye to people like we explained bread. Like a lot of people don't like rye bread, so I kind of do the same thing with whiskey, with rye whiskey. Rye whiskey has a really heavy rye like this, which is 95% rye, has that really spicy note that turns a lot of people off. Which I like the spiciness, but what I like about rye is when you taste a high rye especially. It comes off as a little bit stronger proof. I like the higher proof stuff.
Yep.
So it can kind of artificially feel like you're drinking something higher proof. And so you're not, forcing yourself to drink 120 proof when you're really drinking 107 proof. But ryes, you should always, check them out. There's different ryes. There's obviously the mash bill like this. 95% rye is going to be heavy rye. You can't drink this and not taste a rye. But there's a lot of blended ryes out there I think are really good, and some lower proof ryes that can be very enjoyable for people.
No, this is excellent. This is definitely something that that makes me take a second look at ryes, because this is probably one of the top ryes I've ever had.
We'll have to give you some more tonight if you like rye. We have a couple other picks here as we get through it. But now, as we're talking about whiskey, one of your hobbies, we have it out here. He didn't brew this, but I just found out earlier today that you are a home brewer.
Yeah. So
is mead your number one?
Mead and cider.
Okay.
How it kind of started is I have this nasty allergy to IPAs. And it's not just IPAs. It's sometimes wheat beers. It gives me high. Like I could never quite figure out what it is or what it was. So I started home brewing. So it was like, maybe it's sulfites or, X, Y, and Z. So I started brewing. Like the cleanest thing I could think of to make was mead, right? So I started making my own mead, and then I started experimenting with ciders. I made a couple beers as well. And I've really narrowed it down. I think that it's some of the preservatives that get caught in the hops when they like dry hop a beer that ends up like carrying forward those preservatives and giving me the reaction. So, so that's how I started making mead, and then I just kind of fell in love with it. I'm to the point now where I can make 26 gallons at a time, which is a lot of mead. you have to.
You heard him early. That lasts them 10 days. 26.
No, it's.
I mean, what do you do with that much mead?
You give it to people.
Yeah,
you give it away.
Yeah.
You enjoy making it.
That is my favorite thing about home brewers is that if you know them, you're going to get tons of stuff, whether you want it or not. Yeah. And you're going to be like, hey, I'm good. And they're like, no, take this.
Please get it out of my refrigerator is full. Please get it out of my house.
My wife says I need to get this shit out of the garage now.
She doesn't have room to park her car. The fermenter has to move. We have to empty it.
Is that the ultimatum though? Is when you got to get rid of it when the car doesn't fit in the garage?
No, it's normally she doesn't have room in the fridge for her meal preps. So because there's bottle after bottle after bottle. Because I'll walk through and I'll bottle probably 2-3 cases of bottles. My only pet peeve with giving people alcohol is if I give you a swing top bottle, you give me back my freaking swing top bottle.
Yeah, there's something you didn't know about. That's a good.
Like they're more expensive than a normal bottle, and you just rinse it out and give it back. Like I can reuse it. Don't throw my bottle away.
Maybe you should put like a sticker "Return to Kyle" on the bottom of it or something.
Return to sender.
I mean, I would think that you would give it. Yeah, if you got free beer, I would go up or mead that you would give it back to the person. But you just got to ask these people. They probably have it somewhere in their house. It's not like there's a black market for selling those bottles, right?
So I think what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get growlers, right? Maybe find somewhere that does like laser engraved growlers, and because it's way less effort for me to bottle it into their growler than it is for me to bottle it into swing tops. So
what's the batch you were talking earlier? How big of a batch do you have going right now?
I did half of my capacity, so I did 13 gallons. I have 11 gallons left. And it's stable. It's sitting there with an airlock. It's been secondaried. It's been racked into a new container, so it's not sitting on the yeast. Just aging out. Like whatever. I'll drink it when I drink it.
So the people that you give it to, they normally ask to get more back from you or more? Or is it like?
Yeah. One of my friends, he when he comes over, he normally drinks a gallon and then leaves with a gallon. So
I can't. We're talking about the amounts of alcohol people consume. I'm like a gallon. There was a joke to like watch me drink a case of beer. No one wants to see that at all. Especially we grabbed this meat, like we grabbed the mead before. And we're like, let's see you drink 24 of these, and it was like 12%. So you talked about the highest one you ever brewed.
Yeah, it was 25%. My wife, bless her soul,
it just makes my all the hair on my neck stand up and like.
So what it was a sicer. So it was a mead that was made with apple juice in it as well. So that helped really buff up the alcohol content, but it made it drink like a really sweet American cider with a really heavy honey apple or aftertaste. So it was like drinking an Angry Orchard, but then you got punched in the face with honey. It was super good. But so it was about 25%, and I had it on tap on my back porch. So I had a Keyser. So what it is it's a freezer that you put a temperature controller on it. That way you can keep the alcohol at like 28 degrees because it doesn't freeze until it gets like 25. So you can keep this stuff super cold. And then it had the beer tower you could tap, pour right out of it. So we're sitting on the back porch, and she had a rough Friday, and she had picked up overtime on Saturday. So she pours herself a glass, sits down, drinks it, asks me for a second one. I'm like, yeah, I don't think you should. So I end up giving her a second one. When she asks for a third one, I tell her no. Like, you can't have a third one. So she tries to get it up and get it herself, and like baby deer legs, like cannot stand. Ends up face planting into a chair, the back of a chair, and splits her lip open.
This sounds like some good. Like, yeah. What's the average sit down? Like, is this like a one and done, or would people just continuously have 3 or 4? Because I feel like at 25%.
So
I do like a 12% IPA, and I'm like, that's it for.
I've been told that I'm not, like, even though I built a speakeasy bar in my basement, I'm not allowed to bartend anymore. I have this bad habit of just getting everyone around me absolutely shit-faced. So I can make a Moscow Mule that I can get 6 shots of vodka and you can't taste that there's alcohol in it.
So, I'm getting harassed. I have a feeling I know who this is, but this has to be who I think it is. But it says, Che, make your VA appointments. Yeah, get some guys. Thanks, Dad. That's your partner in crime. Harass me now. No, but yeah. Not supposed to harass me. It's supposed to be harassing the guests now. But yeah. So I mean, what got you into brewing though? Is it just something that like about the time, or did you always?
It was one about the it was about the allergy, and then it was also I had the period that I started home brewing, I had gotten off active duty. And did you do any reserve time, or were you all active duty?
I did a little bit of reserve time, yeah.
You know that weird feeling when you get off active duty and you're just like, none of these people know what they're doing, and there's no adults in the room. And
but it's a different. Yeah, it's definitely it depends on where you go. Like there's definitely a potential decrease in the competency of the people around you is a good way to put it. Not everyone, but there's a lot of other people who are in the same the same, my reserve unit had a lot of the same people like me, but there are people that at the time had never deployed, didn't know what they were talking about. Yeah, so 100%.
So I was still doing the reserve thing. I was going to college, and it was just this weird period in my life where I got to find something to do, because I was at home going to college, working a part-time job, doing GI Bill stuff. And then the missus had a full-time job. So it was like, well, I'm just in this apartment with the dog. Like, what am I going to do? My dog is also an alcoholic. He really likes mead. Because when I first started, I wasn't very good at managing the buckets and whatnot. And I'd spill meat on the floor, and the dog would lick it up, and the dog would run into the wall. They'd be like, "Oh, shouldn't spill meat anymore." Which the funniest story about homebrewing is, I tried to make pineapple cider one time. I got a shitload of pineapple juice, and I put it in this fermenter. You would be surprised at how much more sugar there is in pineapple than there is anything else. It blew up, like literally grenaded, and there was a cake of pineapple stuff on the ceiling of our apartment bathroom. And she comes home from work, and it's still dry.
I'm sure the apartment loved that too.
I burnt down better places on purpose. But no, pineapple cider it turned out really good. But that was another case of, I made something that got absolutely everyone that was near me irresponsibly intoxicated.
So do you think it falls into your analytical mind, though, the whole thing of brewing? Because I feel like there's a lot of, you've got to, I couldn't be, I love drinking, but I'm not into, when I ever go to distilleries, I'm always like, I could see myself doing this for 10 minutes, you know what I mean? And I'd be done. But I feel like the people I know that home brew or distill, they're very, structured, analytical. It's like a challenge of the mind, and
on the meat and cider side, what I would say is it's weaponized autism, or just really bad ADHD, because it's the best. So distilling takes a ton of time. You have to first make a beer and then distill it into whiskey or whatever you're going to distill it into. So you have to make something that's alcoholic and then concentrate it. Ton of effort, ton of time. Making wine, making mead, making cider. It's that great hobby for somebody who wants to put forth a little bit of effort one time and then just sit around and wait. So you can get motivated to make your mead. You can make your mead, and then you can just be as neglectful as possible. Then come back in 6 months and you have an amazing mead because you haven't touched it. All you did was like, oh wow, the airlock's a little low, and pour some water in the top of the airlock.
So somebody has posted they still haven't gotten any. So the VSO channel.
That's my brother.
So he said your own brother hasn't gotten any meat yet.
He never comes and sees me. He's he's a crotchety old man who lives in a cottage with his bees. He doesn't even have a dog. So,
he has bees though.
Yeah, he does beekeeping now. So it's pretty interesting. I'm waiting to reap the benefits of his.
I think you gotta. Yeah, why aren't you putting his honey in your mead?
This is his first year beekeeping.
Okay.
He hasn't responded. I bet you he logged off.
He logged off. He's got to go tend to the bees. But that's become a pretty interesting hobby now that people are getting into now, like the beekeeping, because you can do it pretty much anywhere now. It's kind of crazy. People are. Yeah,
and it's really good when you look at some of the write-offs and stuff that the government's providing people. It's actually kind of a good way to take your family farm if you haven't yet. So,
well, I feel like you and your brother need to collaborate. I mean, we got honey, mead. It could be like you guys can do a cool label. I know a guy who does labels. We could do a decal for you or whatever. I mean,
10-year plan. 10-year plan.
Did you 10 years before you used his honey? Or I mean, come on.
5-year plan. Well, he's got a first. This is his first year, so his hives need to make it through the winter this year, and then if they make it through the winter, then we can discuss maybe expanding the operation. Or
so is he in Ohio here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he's still out in Eastern Ohio.
And he's still, you haven't been able to figure out how to get him those. Is he the reason why he doesn't have any because he didn't give the bottles back?
No.
Once or what?
No.
I mean, I feel like he's not that far away.
No, I should take him some meat. I really should. I have a buddy coming up this weekend, so I'll send some back for him.
Good. You hear that? What's his name?
Curtis.
Curtis?
Yeah.
Curtis, you're finally getting some mead. Hope it tastes good. Let us know. You could leave a comment. I mean, he didn't bring us any fucking meat either. That's the thing that's crazy. Now that I'm thinking about it, holy cow! I'm like,
gallons of
I'm an hour and a half in. I wasn't about to say, but you know what? Your brother's fucking awful. He didn't bring us any mead either. We're drinking somebody else's mead. We've got 2 other meads. I never had mead in my house until a week ago. And now the guy who brews it doesn't even bring us any mead.
I almost brought mead, but
I almost did a lot of things too.
Yeah. I literally had
I'm giving you.
I meant to pour some into a bottle. I had a toddler hanging on my leg, and I was already running late, and I was like, you got to go before.
Yeah, I'd rather you be on time than have mead. I mean, I would rather you've been on time and mead, but it's okay. Well, because we did have some mead before. We tried a little bit before.
Yep. I
was surprised. I'm not a huge mead fan, but
you might really like this one.
Yeah, the guest from last week brought it, so we might dive into that. Maybe not tonight. I mean, we could try it, I guess.
Yeah,
can you keep that after we open it though?
Yeah.
Well, then we got to try it. Why not?
Yeah. So this one. So I always give people a hard time about Viking blood because I think that it is. I think it's one of the worst examples of mead. But no. It tastes a lot like some type of bourbon cocktail more than a mead. So that other mead that you had,
I don't even know what brand that was. What was that?
Bring forth the bottle.
Yeah, we if it's not finished, we'll do that. We're talking mead now here.
And
again, I just want to reiterate that this is not the mead that Kyle brought us.
So this is B-Town from Bluffington, South Carolina. This is mead with wild blueberry, and it's barrel aged. So I've already tasted this one. This finishes a lot like most of the meads that I make. So this is what I think is a really good mead.
I would compare it to yours, but you didn't bring any, so we'll have to.
Yep, I'm an asshole.
You know where to find me on Fridays and Saturdays, so you can bring me something to try.
Yeah. It's not that far.
I can't believe it. Now I know why I even mentioned that comment. I'm like, I still haven't gotten either. I'm thinking like, why didn't this guy bring us some mead? We're talking about mead. He's talking about brewing a 25 ABV mead. Yeah. I think my legs would stop working.
You're gonna have so much mead. It's
gonna be, I'm gonna have to hide it in the basement. My wife's gonna be like, "What the fuck is this?" I'm like, "God, he's gonna be." I don't know. Just dump it out there. Make sure we give him those glasses back because he'll freak out if we don't give him those bottles back.
Yeah.
So, I'll be pouring it. But I was surprised.
You guys who are watching it can't see the whole peanut gallery, but they're all dying.
This is good though. I mean, I could be down with this.
Yeah,
we'll try Vikings Blood next. We try that next.
So Vikings Blood. This one isn't open yet, is it?
No, you knife.
Yeah, you got a shark.
Don't hurt yourself, Navy.
Oh my God! I already cut myself.
Do you need any ice for your mead, or you?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure because we could get you more ice.
But save this bottle because I take the labels off and reuse them.
Oh, now he wants our bottle.
Well, I'll fill it full of mead for you. But the bottle's really cool.
I feel like I'm pounding mead over here. I'm like,
it is a ceramic bottle. So
I'm trying to see what this one. I am getting the barrel aged thing though. That's what I like about this. The barrel aging. Yeah. That like sweetness that.
So you can even look at this and see how much different the color and like the clarity of this mead is. This is going to be super sweet, and it's going to have a weird finish.
He's not giving me easy pours over here.
Well, this is only what, 19% alcohol?
Only 22%.
Yeah.
I'm not hating it. I'm not hating it. They're all waiting for the mead now. Hand.
Right?
Hand forth the mead.
I'm kind of down with that. Your brother is still on here. He said, "Bullshit, I'm still here." No, he just told you. Don't worry, we know the feeling, man. We're still here too.
I'll send him home some mead this weekend.
These are. I mean, I'm surprised. I mean, maybe the meads I had, I wasn't the same as these, but I found like these are sweet, but it's not overly sweet.
Yeah. That's where you get the ABV in. You know, home brewing 101 is basically you have sugar, the yeast eats the sugar, two byproducts, which are CO2 and ethanol. It's a little bit of methanol, but mostly ethanol. So what ends up happening is that sweetness gets eaten away. That's why, like, a lot of times when you have like a bourbon or something that's been distilled, it has sweetness, but it's not like true sweetness. It's like an essence of sweetness that's in on the back end. This still has a good deal of sweetness because.
So mead, are we supposed to drink at room temperature like this, or are we supposed to put it, chill it, put it on ice like you? What's the normal way of drinking mead? Because you said you were.
A lot of people you drink it like a wine. You can either have it warm, you can have it cold, you can have it. You can drink it like a cocktail, have it over ice. Most places you go will serve it in like a 8-ounce pour. In like a small beer glass.
Yeah, I feel like you can't. Like I couldn't do.
No,
like 8 ounces is probably. I mean, that's a lot.
If you get like a traditional dry mead, you can drink a lot of it and not get a sour stomach. Something as sweet as the Viking blood, the Phantom Arm.
Yeah, he likes to get on camera every chance he gets. Yeah. Like, I'm waiting for him to have some advertisement on his arm as he comes in. That's where you should be putting your meat thing, Nate. Your meat website on your arm when you bring the bottle back. That'd be great.
So, but mead, ton of it's like everything else. There's a ton of different variants.
Yeah.
I'm more of like a traditional dry type. Same like with apple ciders. I really like a traditional dry apple cider, like an English cider or an Irish cider. If I drink that much sugar, it's like eating too much candy.
Yeah.
You get a sour stomach and you're like, this is terrible.
Well, it reminds me a lot of it's a barrel aged, the barrel aged stouts and all that kind of stuff. I like them in small doses, and then, but yeah, I'm at a point where like I'm meated out for the night. This will be it. Can't see myself like.
What, you don't want to put a straw in that?
No,
not.
It's just a little too sweet for me though. It's not
yeah, it is.
It's not that it's bad, but but I think stuff like that is like I always think of when you see a bottle that size like a mead, or if you talk about barrel aged beers. I have the most fun where you just open them up with a group of people and everybody has a couple ounces, 2 or 4 ounces. You drink them, enjoy them that way. When I watch people drink like 16-ounce barrel aged beers that are like, 20 proof, I'm thinking like these people are psychotic that they can even do that. It's just too much flavor. You know what I mean? I don't, now bourbon, you could just drink bourbon all night long, in my opinion. But
no, I have a buddy who works at a brewery out in Iowa, and he brought like some of their special editions, and that's how we drank them. As we did a couple, everybody got like a little 4-ounce pour of it. We kind of talked about the beer. It's a really funny story because he was the high school AP chemistry teacher, and he left to be the beer scientist at the local brewery and makes way more money.
There you go. Probably a lot more fun than dealing with kids. Too, I gotta tell you. So Iowa, is there any tie to Iowa?
No. Why we ended up there is after I got out of the service, or went to reserves, I was in Virginia Beach. My wife was working at the John Deere lawnmower plant in Raleigh, North Carolina. She ended up getting moved to Waterloo, Iowa. Great place.
Are you being sarcastic?
Being very facetious.
Dude, I was born in Iowa. Come on, take it easy on Iowa. My dad was in Iowa. We got 2 Iowa guys here.
Yeah.
Now I can't tell you, Iowa is an interesting place.
Yeah.
Thank God for the Vietnam War that my dad got out of there, and I got out of there as well.
Going back to naval.
Not
service.
that Iowa's a bad place, everybody, but it's just not for me, right?
Going back to naval service, the only place that you should be able to see to the horizon line is on a warship at sea. Not Iowa.
But I have to say, Iowa has, the times I've been back as an adult, I used to work for a company in Iowa. Great people.
Yeah.
People in Iowa that, they're great. But yeah, the Iowa itself is really nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
I mean, the state.
It's nothing to write home about. And
not a lot to see, right? It's like
freaking cold. It gets cold. It's like -50. Like one of the days it was -57. I was like,
Did my dad pay to say that? Because my dad's always talking about how cold Iowa was, and I just feel like Iowa's like it's just there's not a lot to see. Like I mean, there's not there's not mountains. There's not. It's the state itself there's a lot of farmland.
It's corn or marsh because the runoff from the cornfields is now wetland. So lot of good duck hunting if you're into duck hunting. Yeah. We did quite a bit of duck hunting. My brother would come up every year. We would go out. And,
the one you don't give meat to.
Yeah, the one I don't give meat to.
The only brother?
No, I have a little brother.
Does he get meat or no?
No, he doesn't get it. Well, he doesn't get anything from me. He gets everything from my parents. So. No, he's the baby.
That's that.
Huh?
That happens. You gotta have that.
Well, I'm guilty of it too. Like my daughter gets everything. My son, nothing.
So you get just two kids now. So how old's the boy?
They're gonna be 5 and 3. So one of each.
So you got Jameson. You didn't name her after whiskey, did you?
No, it's Miss Willow.
Okay.
So Miss Willow is a handful.
I'm so glad I have a daughter. Now I'm just dealing with 3 boys. So your family just 3 boys or any?
Just 3 boys.
So middle?
Yep.
Gosh, I can see that.
It was the redheaded stepchild. That's why
he saw my middle come down. He was like real quick, then said 3 words to people, and he's out. He got his hot dog and he's gone. So.
Yeah. It was a good hot dog. The mustard though.
Yes, we had a very good meal today.
The mustard was worth the trip.
We were talking about we had some Costco hot dogs before, and people were bragging about how many they could eat, and we were talking about Joey Chestnut. Yeah, don't worry about the bombs upstairs. That's just my family running around. This is the time that they start running around. Oh God.
Well, it's just a natural reaction. In my house, you hear the thump, and then you just listen for crying.
Yeah,
because they're at the age where they beat each other. And
you might have to worry about that too, because Ben's not here, so he might have fallen down. You could still hear him crying if he was the oldest. But yeah, that's good. So any more kids? You guys done? You think?
I think we're
trying.
Right now, unless there is some act of God, we are done.
2 is a good number, boy and girl. You got the
one of each. That's replacement quota. We've replaced ourselves in the gene pool, and we're done.
That's 6. There we go. We're counting. So together we're at 7. But so back to other hobbies. Said you're a woodworker.
Yeah, I do.
Like
do a lot.
Amateur woodworking? Or are you like really into it?
I don't do anything that's super intricate. Like I did the speakeasy bar in my basement. So I built a door that was a bookshelf. Did the whole bar myself, X, Y, and Z. Finished in the basement by myself. I built a few things here and there, but not anything that. Examples, I did barn doors in my last house. It's the last set of barn doors I'm ever going to build.
You're done with that?
Yeah, no more barn doors. My wife got the last set of barn doors that I'll ever build.
We might have to have you build a bar down here with us. We need to expand the bar here. We won't have to get you out here.
Yeah.
I was just asking about woodworking because my dad is used to be an avid woodworker. But what he used to do is he used to go to Amish country. Like we were close to where we lived in New York, and he would like knock off all the designs of the Amish.
Yeah.
It was one of the greatest things, and was selling them in a strip mall in Newburgh. It was a great. But the woodworking, again, it's one of those things. Like I just don't have the patience to. I feel like you have a lot of patience. You know, you call it adult ADD, offset it, but like woodworking, you know, home brewing.
It's one of the most toxic traits I got from my dad. It's called escapism. I need a hobby that provides just enough that I can escape my wife. And my dad does a great job at escaping my mother. So
I'm hoping your wife is listening to this, but I mean,
no,
I don't know what you're talking about. I do nothing to escape my wife.
She's going.
I want only hobbies that include my wife and I.
She is going to beat me when I get home, so it's fine.
You probably should about it. No, but I get it. I mean, is it only for me, wife? To be honest with you, though, is it more for some others? I mean, I know you're making a joke about that, but I think a lot of people have that hobby or that thing they do to escape the real world, or it could be your wife, it could be.
It's honestly 100% about just decompressing, being able to disconnect, put the mind in neutral, or how most women nowadays joke about it is men can put themselves in the nothing box.
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah. So the premise is that men have a nothing box where you can literally just sit there and not think about anything at all. There's nothing on your mind. Like you're just sitting there sipping a glass of bourbon. You're not thinking about anything whatsoever. Your mind is in neutral. I guess from what everybody's told me that women don't have a neutral gear, and
I would agree to that.
There's always just something going on in the background. So like home brewing, woodworking, going fishing, it just gives you a opportunity to just disconnect and hang out in your nothing box.
Yeah.
Where you're not dealing with today's problems or yesterday's problems or X, Y, and Z.
I feel like that's yard work for me. Like when you're on the mower, all you're thinking about is like mowing. You're not thinking about anything else.
Well, the
only thing I'm thinking about is why my kids didn't pick up the dog shit. But other than that, I'm like, you're on there. You're doing. I get that. There's all. I mean, and that can be therapeutic in anything you do. Where because I'm more of during the day. I don't think my mind is racing as much.
Yeah.
It's at the nighttime where you I leave the nothing box, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's always good to find something that takes your mind off of.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Reality. I mean, I don't know if it's reality or is it just the everyday issues that bog you down. You know what I mean? That's the.
Yeah. No, I think that it's, you just have so much going on in your life, and, we're at a point in existence where we have access to more data than anyone else ever has in the history of mankind. Sometimes you just got to go into your nothing box to escape the fire hose of stimulation that you get. It's not natural for you to have as much stimulation as you do.
Oh, I know. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean.
And then my other guilty pleasure is I do a little bit of gaming, and I really like to be a toxic gamer.
I mean, what games are you playing? Because you and my son are probably all of them. If what you can't see is there's literally 3 gaming systems lined up to our right where they're down here. Like they're probably waiting for us to leave to get down here to all be gaming and
they're console gamers.
What's your game?
PC Master Race. But a lot of Call of Duty, just about anything I can get my hands on. Whatever the newest title is, I normally.
You doing the sports games?
Not really. More shooter games or more real-time strategy type stuff. So, but the new Call of Duty title is the king of being a toxic gamer. Everybody my age that grew up as a toxic gamer.
Define the term toxic gamer.
Things that would just be being a dick. Like actions that you can take in the game to just be an absolute dick. Those are things that that I strive to do.
So I have to thank you for how my son is, down here screaming.
Yeah, pretty much.
I appreciate that. You started that trend because I listen to, like, I'm a little older than you are, and we didn't have online gaming, so we gamed a lot together, and the things that you guys say to each other through the headset are awful. And if like people were in the room together, I just imagine people like
started
fist fights. Like my son will be talking to he's only 2 doors down. I'll be like, who are you talking to? And he's like, I'm talking to, both of his friends are. I was like, dude, if I were one of them, I would literally walk over here, knock on the door, and as soon as you open the door, just punch you in the face. He's like, well, they're not going to do that, are they? And you're just like, okay, thanks. But yeah, but it is an interesting, because I understand it's a connection to people, but there is a lot of that.
No, my thing is you have to pay the toxicity forward. So like if your sons were on and like they're adults, like, right, we're going to be cordial and we're going to play a good game. But when you hear the 12-year-old, like with their non-puberty voice, just being annoying on the other side of the proximity chat, no, the gloves are off. Like
I was actually hoping I was gonna be like, when they're kids, you take it easy on them. But I mean, exact opposite of what this is. This is really worrying me. I'm kind of like,
welcome to the world.
Kyle's like, if you're 14 and under, we will fucking ruin you. Like, I mean, it's like
they got to learn what the real world's like. They're gonna go to a job if they haven't been properly indoctrinated into how shitty the world is. And think that everybody's going to be nice to them, or you can just prepare them to be stomped.
No, I get the like preparing everybody, but I've listened to, like, when my kids were younger, we didn't let them have headsets, and like we listened to what they were talking about, and I just remember one of our friends' sons, who's a couple of years older, was talking about just the most awful things. You could hear him, and I'm just like, oh my god, like what? And like you're playing baseball here. What are we talking about? Like, I mean, no, just I get the. I can't be down here when my sons are playing because they start talking and they're not even talking to me, and I just want to walk over there and just like teach them the real world. Is like, because I think there's a bad part about that. I think there's a point of, yes, like you can't act like a fool. Someone's going to call you out. But the problem in that world is, what can you? They're not getting a real, real image. Like my oldest son is sit there and call somebody a fucking idiot and some stuff he says about them. I'm like, if he's talking to somebody like that outside of his parent, it's where his parents' basement, right? No, but you're gonna get punched in the face. Like, honestly, like I feel like one of them, like I think I just need to invite people in, and like when they start acting like that, if you want to talk about your strategy, it's just like somebody needs to pummel them because they say the most. They say the most awful things to each other. I don't know how it can be enjoyable. That's the thing, is it doesn't seem fun to me. It's even like baseball. Like my kids are we all played baseball growing up, and they'll be playing the MLB game, and they will lose their mind over stuff. And it's just like it's a freaking video game.
Well, but so the first thing with it is you never take it seriously. Like,
you always take it seriously. You want to.
Well, I mean, you play to win, but you don't like. Some of these people like have absolute counterparts, and you can tell who the adults in the chat are, because you're like, oh wow, hey guys, this is a video game. Like, why are you screaming? Like,
right, yeah.
Some trash talking. Like, trash talking is just part of, if you were to equate video games to sports, baseball's always had trash talking, football's always had trash. You're there and you're trash talking during the thing. My other defense to being really toxic to the younger people is the game is rated mature. If you're 12 years old in a Call of Duty lobby, your parents have failed you.
Yeah, no, that's that is true, because there are some.
Welcome to the world. Like, your parents made a conscious decision to expose you to the shitty underbelly of the world. People like me. Mom, and it's my social responsibility.
No, but it does go back to, I think it is. You have to be careful in a sense, because it is. The interesting thing about that platform is there are people of all ages that are on it, and you have to be like, if your kid is 12 years old and you're letting them play, Modern Warfare or some of the other games, like, I don't want to say they're failing, because it depends on the kid you have. Like your third kid, first kid, you take care of them. Second kid, maybe.
Yeah.
Third kid, you're like, they're watching Iron Man, when they're 5.
No,
they're,
you missed it. The first kid you take care of. The second kid you take care of until you have the third kid.
Yeah.
And then after you have the third kid, you baby the third kid, and the second kid doesn't exist.
Oh, this is some deep stuff coming out. I didn't think it was going to. No, but it is. I think it is funny that you said it, because that is a good point that you're making. Is that system. The gaming is there's all kinds of people. There's there's people of all ages, and if you are a kid and you're on there and your parents aren't monitoring that, it's probably not a good place for you to be. I mean, in some of those games they shouldn't even be playing anyways. Man, like 12. I can't imagine at 12. I mean, all my kids start off with the sports games and all that kind of stuff, and then eventually you just get sick of it, and you're like, yeah, just as long as you guys be quiet.
And like honestly, like I joke about it, but like the toxic thing, but a lot of times if I get into the pregame lobby and like you get pre-selected with like 2 other people, if somebody's like 12 years old, I'll leave the lobby and then go back into the lobby, so I get paired with adults.
Yeah.
But mostly because I don't want to hear somebody's shitty open mic with terrible pop music playing in the background. Like X, Y, Z.
I still think it's a crazy thing, because I can't imagine listening to all, because I only hear what my sons are saying, and I literally my sons have, if they're listening, they haven't figured out that is the one way to get me out of here. Like I will not fucking come down here if they're playing video games. I'm like, I can't deal with that. I'm like, I'm down here 5 minutes. I'm trying to do some work. I'm like, I gotta go. Like, and maybe they do know. That's why they're doing that. They might even be playing games, or just arguing. Then when I leave, they're like, all right, guys, back to the movie or whatever. But the gaming thing is, I think it is good. It is like anything else. It has its positives. It has its negatives. But yeah, like you definitely shouldn't. I've never heard of that.
Pay for the toxicity.
I mean, I appreciate that, because I think my son, and you guys can talk about it after, because he loves paying it forward.
Well, but what it boils down to is my generation was the LAN generation, where in high school we had the 100-foot roll of Ethernet that we connected 4 Xboxes together through there'd be Ethernet running through freaking vents, and so you'd have 16 people playing Halo, right. And you'd still be there like trash talking, but you'd be trash talking through the wall.
Right.
But then, online gaming, like we were at the beginning of when online gaming came out, and X, Y, and Z. So, we're the original generation of online gaming, and then now we have these. I'll be nice.
No, I mean, but it's. I think a lot. I mean, I get it. It has changed. I think the one thing for me is like the gaming of playing the same game. It was always frustrating, because I go back to college days of playing Tecmo Bowl. And you'd have to like, it was your turn to play, and you had. I think we had like 5 minutes before you had to get back to the room to play in, or something. They would auto play it, and however the game went. But I can't imagine at that time where you were able to connect the way you were. With gaming, it is a pretty unique thing, but it definitely needs to be, in my mind, it needs to be regulated. Because so you have a son who's 5, right?
Yeah.
Like, what age do you let him start playing?
Oh, he's never.
Yeah.
Never. Mostly because I won't buy a console, and I'm not going to let him play on my gaming rig.
So that are you guys on your? Are you PC? Or are you
PC?
Oh, he's hardcore gaming. This is
the master race.
Man, all the gaming, like, come on, this is
when I flip it on, the lights dim in the room. So
the house goes down. Like
I need to put that on a different breaker. Like that's on my things to do. Is the PC needs.
So he's not interested in only you when you're gaming. He's got to be.
I make sure. So I own guns, but we have a very strict set of rules in my household about firearms. So I don't play games especially shooter games, when the kids are awake. We don't have water guns. We don't have Nerf guns. And it's just this whole responsibility around the kids need to learn that a gun isn't a game and it's not a toy. Like, you need to to be able to learn the responsibility around this thing. So that's why I don't even play games when the kids are awake, especially if they're a shooter game, because I don't want them to associate this with something that's fun and isn't like shooting's fun, but it's still a very serious thing. Like even if you're out there with your buddies and you're shooting rounds of trap or you're punching paper or punching steel, you're having a ton of fun, but you're like always in the back of your mind, like something bad could happen. So you need to be super safe with it. Same mentality when it goes with safety with my kids, like I have multiple safes around the house, like X, Y, and Z. There's nothing that's ever left out. We don't do the toy gun thing because we don't want any confusion. Like if there was an incident that they came across a weapon somehow, they need to know, like, don't touch it, like be responsible with it.
That's a pretty hardcore stance. I think a lot, the playing guns is like, I think I started playing guns when I was like 8 years old.
No, I did too.
So it's a hard thing to like there's a responsibility of like where it is real and not real. Like, but especially today's playing guns is completely different. You see like the airsoft community, which is nuts. I mean, all these guns and how these people look, it almost looks like, tactical enthusiasts or like real life military people that are out there. So I get that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I think it's just that's a very hardcore stance to keep the kids,
No, but it's mostly. So one of the things with my son is he has really bad ADHD. So that's one of the reasons for this really hardcore stance is, my understanding from talking to, the professionals that we go to for him, he sees the world like the way stimulation from the world hits him. Like you and I, we get sprayed with a garden hose. Like, so as the world's coming at us, we're getting sprayed in the face with a garden hose. He's getting sprayed in the face with a fire hose. So everything we can do to simplify it and make sure there aren't multiple streams crossing, just makes it's just the responsible thing to do. And it's, it might be a little strict, but it's just, kind of the way I've decided.
No, it's your thing. I mean, hey, there's no, everyone's are, different. Like I honestly didn't have guns until my kids were growing up in the house. That was one of the things my wife didn't want, like real guns. Like, so we did do the play guns, but there was no real guns in the house that until, I decided just to wing it and go for it.
Yeah.
Don't recommend that at all, by the way. But it does work. It works well for about 2 or 3 guns, and then it doesn't really work well for you. But
I've had that.
But it was understand the same thing too. It was like a different philosophy. Like you have that. It wasn't the ADHD, but it was there was the thing of like of making sure it's safe and that's something. And guns aren't they're not toys. I mean that's a lot of things that. That a lot of people still are confused by. Like even my boys now, I think it's amazing. I talked about before, if I left, a pistol out, like if I just was, I can still carry if I left it there. Like if I walked up and any of them touched it, I would freak out. They wouldn't, but it's one of the things that you ingrain when they're young, and to have the respect for it, I think is important. And yeah, the gaming thing, I don't know how much the gaming thing has desensitized it. That's a whole different. Like we could talk for hours about that.
Yeah, I mean we could go into the weeds with that, but it's just a stance that I took to. That's 7 or 8.
8, I think 8. Yeah, you're close enough. You're closely approaching.
Am I going to hit the right?
You're just going to win it towards the end.
No, but it's just something that my wife and I talked about, and we're like, hey, this is something we need to do, because we don't want some type of incident where, they think this is a toy or they come across something, even if they're like at a friend's house and, somebody else left something out.
Yeah.
Just know this isn't a toy. Don't touch it. X, Y, and Z. So 100%.
So,
and when he gets a little bit older, we'll have a different conversation about it, you know, start into the shooting sports in X, Y, and Z. But you know, at 4.5 years old, it's
Oh
a
yeah,
little
there's
early.
no way. Yeah.
You know?
That's early. Yeah, and then I think it's funny too. Like what you're into is not necessarily what they're into. Is I was making a joke earlier about my oldest. Like he doesn't. My middle and youngest like to shoot. My oldest really doesn't into it. So it's not like I still am today. Like, oh, let's go do it. And it's you know, gun safety is super important. And I think, you know, that's one thing about the that platform of, you know, modern warfare, the first person shooting games. It is interesting how quickly kids are getting exposed to it.
Yeah.
In my mind, way too young. So definitely keep them off your rig.
Yeah.
What you call it. I love how he calls that. And, yeah. And that's like hardcore when you have the PC. My boys and I'll make funny later about because my friend. That's why I always ask my youngest about his friends. Like he's like one of them's got. They're into the PCs. They don't have, you know.
Well, the
Xbox. I'm like
for a while you couldn't do it. So like when it first started, you were either a PlayStation guy or you were an Xbox guy or you were a PC guy, and those lobbies were all separate. So if all your friends played Xbox, then you probably bought an Xbox so you could play with all your friends. And then it got to the point where they started to allow cross-platform play. So and honestly, in the Call of Duty lobbies, they had to do a lot of work to neuter the PC's capabilities because, like keyboard and mouse, you can scroll so much faster than somebody with a joystick. So. You know, it's interesting, but it's also like return on investment. So, you know, you can turn around, you can buy a brand new Xbox for $1,000. You can put $1,000 into a PC, or probably more, probably about $2,000 into a PC. But in 5 years, when you're kind of hitting the verge of the graphics, you can just buy a new graphics card and have your whole thing up to you know, modern technology.
Yeah, PlayStation, Xbox doesn't want to hear that, but no, it's true. You just buy another $1,200 Xbox. It's great. I think we have like old Xboxes just in boxes behind there somewhere with the mead, bourbon. They're all back there. Yeah. But that's great.
the mead that you never drink because it's too sweet. Now it's on top of the pile of dead Xboxes.
I like it. Yeah, I want to put the old Xbox in my bedroom, but I'm like, I can't deal with people. The toxicity that you're passing forward. I just want to play a game. I just want to have fun. That's why I want to go to my place to be relaxing. People are calling me an asshole. Then I'm agitated. I'm like, where do you live at again, buddy? Like, that's all right. No, but that's cool. Yeah. Well, Kyle, thanks for coming on. We're approaching the 2-hour mark. Really appreciate you coming in. I know you had a long day. We're down in the promised land before you came up. Stopped at Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, I had to drive past three distilleries to get to Buffalo Trace to actually make it to this on time. So,
I mean, you had a good day. You got a shirt. You got EH Taylor. You got some bourbon cream. You had a good pick, but it's the
bourbon cream is going to be gone by the time I get home. She's just going to pour it over a rock and drink the whole bottle.
Bourbon cream is delicious. It's again a little too sweet. It's good in small doses, but again, thanks for coming on. And thanks for being patient. I know we moved you around, I think, a couple times. Yeah. to come in, we're in that. I really appreciate that. The frantic call where I'm like, I need to move you. It's all right. Thanks for being flexible. Yeah. So, again, you know, why Ports with Patriots was started a year ago was to help combat veteran suicide. So tonight we're going to talk about and honor a veteran, a former sailor who took his life. Tonight we're going to honor U.S. Navy Petty Officer 2nd Class Cody Lee Decker, 22 years old. Cody took his life on October 29th, 2022, while assigned to the Mid-Atlantic Regional Maintenance Center in Norfolk, Virginia. Cody was born September 8, 2000. After graduating from high school, Cody enlisted in the United States Navy as an electronics technician and served on the USS Baton. At the time of his death, Cody was a new father and had just been transferred from the USS Baton after struggling with mental health issues. Cody was the first of 4 Navy sailors to take their lives while assigned to the Mid-Atlantic Regional Maintenance Center, all within 1 month of each other. Cody had a vivacious personality, unique outlook on life, a love of overpriced shoes, and a desire to bake every dessert he could find a recipe for. Cody never met a stranger he could not turn into a friend. Cody's greatest achievements outside of work was his baking skills and his son Miles, who he loved deeply and endlessly, and was looking forward to watching and helping turn into an amazing man. Cody is survived by his wife Jude, son Miles, parents Robert and Melissa, stepfather Billy, and brothers Andrew and Scott. And if you or someone you know is contemplating suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Hotline at 988, or you can dial 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can text 838-255, or you can actually chat online at veteranscrisishotline.net/chat. So thanks again for coming on, Kyle. We'll end with another. We need some military intelligence quotes. We start off with the Navy. I started off nice here. So there's one quote that I like. The one intelligence quote. I bet you could do. Like you don't have to put it up. We won't do the first one, but it was from Groucho Marx. Military intelligence is a contradiction in terms. Big joke that amongst the military people. But the final quote we'll end episode 35 with is from John Berger. Being a unique superpower undermines the military intelligence of strategy. To think strategically, one has to imagine oneself in the enemy's place. If one cannot do this, it is impossible to foresee, to take by surprise, to outflank. Misinterpreting an enemy can lead to defeat. This is how empires fall. So, again, I want to thank you for coming in. Yeah. Thank you for the mead that you didn't bring us, but I'm kidding. I'm looking forward to getting. I'm going to get in like gallons of by the end of the week. But thanks again for coming on. We'll see everybody in a couple weeks for episode 36. And again, thanks for coming on, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.